one segment in a series of presentations on each of the ballot measures for the November 3rd, 2020 general election, brought to you by the League of Women Voters of Fremont, Newark, and Union City. I am Mary Miller, a member of the League, and will present a brief overview of Proposition 16 in this segment. There is a separate segment on our website for your reference on how to evaluate a ballot measure, which we recommend that you read as well, you view as well. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization that promotes political responsibility through informed and active participation of citizens in government. It is important to emphasize that the League never supports or opposes any political party or candidate. However, the League does study issues of public policy and takes positions of support or oppose on some measures. Proposition 16. This is a constitutional amendment put on the ballot by the California Legislature. It permits state and local government decision-making to address diversity by considering race, sex, color, ethnicity, or national origin. The reason this is on the ballot is because an earlier proposition, number 209, was put on the ballot in 1996 to specifically prohibit such considerations in government decision-making. And the only way to amend a constitutional amendment is with a subsequent constitutional amendment that is approved by the voters. The legislature cannot act on this alone. Proposition 16 repeals a section of the California Constitution which resulted from the earlier proposition. Therefore, it must pass by 2/3 of the voters to become law. Language of the bill includes: it is the intent of the legislature that California remedy discrimination against and underrepresentation of certain disadvantaged groups in a manner consistent with the United States Constitution and allow gender, racial, and ethnic diversity to be considered among the factors used to decide college admissions and hiring and contracting by government institutions. Supporters of Proposition 16 argue that since the passage of Proposition 209 in 1996, there has been about a 40% reduction in women-owned businesses receiving public contracts, a reduction of underrepresented groups admitted to the University of California system, that Proposition 209 overrode a long history of civil rights legislation going back as far as the 1959 California Unruh Civil Rights Act, which was a precursor to the National Civil Rights Act of 1964. And finally, equal opportunity and fairness are fundamental to American democracy. And over the years, programs have been instituted to further these values. This measure was put on the ballot by the legislature and is widely supported by elected officials on both the state and local levels. It's also supported by education and labor leaders and organizations. The Yes on 16 website shows an extensive list. Major funding for promoting this measure comes from the Kaiser Foundation, as well as two philanthropists. Quinn Delaney is founder and former president of the Akonandi Foundation. She's a campaign activist and civil rights lawyer with a long history of working on discrimination, particularly women's issues. Patricia Quillen is a California philanthropist from Santa Cruz. Those who oppose Proposition 16 argue that the current ban on consideration of race, sex, color, ethnicity, and national origin in public education, employment, and contracting is in keeping with the Federal Civil Rights Act of 1964. Proposition 209 was approved by the voters in 1996 to ensure equal treatment of all Californians. Further, they argue that this proposition is not the place to address the underrepresentation of any group in higher education. This is the responsibility of both the K-12 system as well as colleges and universities. The key is to prepare students for admission and provide the resources and information they need to access the opportunities available to all. They argue this measure reinforces identity politics and is counter to the fundamental ideal we have that everyone should be treated under the law, equally under the law. They say Proposition 16 is divisive and discriminatory, and its implementation will put a political band-aid on some deeper socioeconomic challenges at best. Opponents and funders of Proposition 16 include the most well-known is Ward Connerly, former UC regent. He's widely known for his for actively promoting Proposition 209 in 1996 to make all discrimination illegal. And major funding for promoting this opposition to this measure comes from Students for Fair Admissions, which is an organization that advocates for eliminating race as a criteria in college admissions. In summary, there are three important points to remember. First, this is a constitutional amendment, so it must take, it requires 2/3 majority of the voters to pass. Secondly, supporters believe this measure creates more openness and opportunities for people. It fights discrimination and racism and brings back affirmative action activities. Opponents believe this measure creates preferential treatment and that the voter-approved Proposition 209 from 1996 should not be overturned by the legislature. Here you see a list of nonpartisan sources of voter information to help you decide how to vote. Voter's Edge, listed first, is a place to find your specific ballot that will include local decisions as well as the state and national candidates. Thank you for taking the time to learn about the ballot measures, and we encourage you to vote on or before November 3rd.